All right, so let's briefly talk about this relationship between total utility and marginal utility. And let's do so through another kind of example using tacos as the good. We're going to use kind of different numbers than that last video that we kind of maybe just watched. Okay, so let's think about the number of tacos as this first column, and let's use 3 different colors here. The second one will be total utility, so TU for total utility. I just want to give myself a little bit of space to maybe draw a graph at the end. And MU for marginal utility. So we can give different numbers of tacos, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so we can think of, well, the total utility from having 0 tacos is going to be 0, right? Now let's try to think, we're going to have to be given this information, what the marginal utility might be. And so let's say the marginal utility of consuming that first taco is 25. They get 25 utils of happiness from having that first taco. Well, that means the total utility of having that first taco is 25. The total utility of having 0 plus the additional consumption from having that first taco. And let's say the marginal utility of the second taco, of eating that second taco, is 20 utils. Well, that means the total utility of having 2 tacos is going to be 25 from the total utility of having 1, plus the additional happiness or satisfaction from having that second one. So 45. Hopefully they're somewhat lining up for you. Okay. And then the marginal utility from the third one, let's say, is 15. Just to give us some easy numbers here. Let's get rid of that extra pen. And then we get 60. 45 plus 15 is 60. And then let's say we get, it'd be a lot easier if I was ambidextrous here, but marginal utility falls to 10. So again, look how this marginal utility has this diminishing marginal utility. It's positive, but the marginal utility is going down the more tacos we have. And notice what that means for the total utility is that it's going up, but it's going up at a decreasing rate. Let's say from the 5th taco, our marginal utility to be 5. I don't know why I'm going in a certain, not keeping a straight line here, but what can you do? So 75 would be the total utility from having 5 tacos. And let's say the 6th taco, we're already full. Eating that 6th taco is going to give us no marginal utility. So going to give us no additional satisfaction from having that 6th taco. So that's this total utility will stay the same. And let's say we're already full after 6 and having that 7th, I should say, taco is actually going to give us negative marginal utility because we're getting so full we're going to get sick. Well, then our total utility would go back down to 70. So here we can see this diminishing marginal utility. The marginal utility is going down as we consume more. And what that means for the total utility is that it's going up as long as this marginal utility is positive, but it's going up at a decreasing rate. We can think about then drawing what these look like. Just want to make sure we're going to stay on the screen here. And so let's say this is the total utility in this top graph, and this is the marginal utility in this bottom. So that's what's on the y-axis, and the x-axis is going to be like the number of tacos, or the number of whatever good we're looking at. All right, so what's happening in the total utility, we see it goes up from 0 to 25. So if this was 1, and kind of going up to 25. And it's going to keep on going up, but it's going up at a decreasing rate until it's maximized, we see at, let's say, 75. So between 5 and 6. Let's say it's 5. So the total utility is going up and up and up until we get to this 5, and it's maximized at 75. If we had 4, it was at 70. Obviously, this is not to scale. But that's the idea. It's this kind of inverse parabola. And we see if this continued on, the total utility would start falling, right? If we got more than 5, or I should say more than 6, it's going to start falling. Now, what the margin utility is, it's the slope of this total utility. So the slope, it's going to be 0 at this point 5. We know that for sure, right? Because that's flat up here. Kind of between 5 and 6 to be a little bit more accurate. And we see that it's falling the whole time. So the margin utility starts off really high, but it falls until it crosses 0 between 5 and 6. So maybe I should be a little bit more accurate here and say 5 and 6 and 5 and 6. Hopefully you can still somewhat read that. And so this margin utility line, maybe I should still use the same color as you've seen before, is going to be this straight line, because it's just falling in this linear fashion. And it's going to be positive until it crosses this between 5 and 6, because that's when we see this margin utility gets negative. And so it's the slope of this total utility line. So the slope of total utility is fairly steep at the beginning here. So margin utility is high, showing that the slope is high. But then as we increase the number of tacos we have, the margin utility is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. It's diminishing, which means the slope is getting smaller and smaller, and that's why this curve is kind of flattening out. And then eventually becomes negative when the margin utility becomes negative. So that's this relationship between total utility and margin utility. And see where it's maximized, the slope equals 0, right? The marginal utility equals 0.